Hi pen fans, this is Stephen. Today we're going to be doing another fountain pen shootout. And today we'll be looking at three interesting pens which have absolutely nothing to do with each other, except that they all have a swirly body, a swirly finish. I was sort of requested to do a shootout between my Edison Collier and Persimmon Swirl and this pen, which doesn't really have a brand name because it's a kit pen someone made for me. Brett Thompson made this pen for me, and it also has a swirl, as you can see. And then I recently got the Monteverde the Prima, and this too has a swirly finish. So I thought, you know what, let's throw that in there too. So today I'm going to talk a bit about those three pens. As I said, they have nothing to do with each other. They're at different price levels. The only thing they have in common is the finish. And for one person at least, that was enough of a similarity to warrant a shootout. And I think there's nothing wrong with the shootout between these three pens, just to give you an idea of what's out there. So I'm going to talk about the three of them briefly. I have separate reviews of these pens on my channel. If you want more in-depth views of one pen, please check them out. I'm not going to reiterate all of that. For now, I'll just say, let's start with this one. This is the biggest one out there of these three anyway. The Edison Collier Persimmon Swirl. I love this finish. I think it's absolutely beautiful. This orange is very intense, nice marbling. It does not post, so if that is extremely important to you, then you cannot buy this pen because it simply won't post. On the other hand, make no mistake, this is a big pen, so it's not really necessary to post it either. It has a steel nib, it comes with a converter, and that's pretty much all there's to it. This nib is a nice two-tone, so if that is important to you, you like those nibs, then you may consider this one. Persimmon Swirl. And then we have Brett Thompson's pen, the pen he made for me. I probably knew the name of the material at some point and I've forgotten. It doesn't really matter a whole lot. You can contact Brett Thompson. He is on YouTube as hkstrongside. You can contact him via YouTube if you want him to make a pen for you. Here we have it. I love this color, a nice dark gray with some cool marbling, as you can see there, and then these orange swirls. I think that's pretty cool. This is another pen that does not post, so forget about that. I like the shape, I like the width and the girth of the pen. Some kit pens are very bulbous, and I don't really like that. This one is quite nice, I would say. It has that thin section that kit pens tend to have. It doesn't really bother me. I think this Brett did a good job in creating this pen, and that's pretty much all there's to it. So there's this pen. To show you a size comparison with the Collier, you see it's quite a bit smaller, so if you're not really into large pens, you can consider this. And for those of you who like narrow sections, this is about as narrow as it gets, I think. So just an idea. Then finally we have the Monteverde Prima. I just got this quite recently. Again, very nice finish with some really nice brown swirls. They come in a bunch of finishes. I like this one. There's a very nice turquoise version, but I bought this one because it's brown, and I'm not called Stephen Turquoise, I'm called Stephen Brown, so I thought this would make a lot of sense. I like it. This one you can post, so if you absolutely have to post, this is the only one that I'll be talking about today that you can use. Nice section, decent section, just a very simple tapered shape. I say that because I've shown you the section on the Brett Thompson pen. The Edison has this sort of what do you call that? Saddle shape, I suppose, which is quite pleasant to hold too, but it's a bit different. I don't mean that in any bad way. It's just different from the other two, which are just tapered. So there you have that. Decent size too, I would say. Comes with a converter, as did in my case the other two. And that's all there's to it. let me see, broad nib on the Edison pen, broad nib on this pen, and I think it was well, I thought it was a medium, but it's a fine/medium point nib on the on Brett Thompson's pen. And that's all there's to it. So if you're interested in size, maybe the Prima is just a little bit bigger than the pen Brett made for me, and it's a bit smaller from the than the Collier. And that's all there's to it. So I love all three for different reasons. I'm going to show you how to take them apart, and then I'll do a writing sample. So I hope this was useful, and I'll see you later. Bye bye. Okay, so here we go with the Swirly acrylic pens. Brian Gray is the biggest one, as you can see there. It's, or at least he makes the biggest one. Let's put it that way. Then we have the Monteverde Prima, and the pen without a name, the one that was made for me by Brett Thompson. I'm going to show you how to take them apart, because I always do that in my shootouts. I don't really recommend you do this unless it's absolutely necessary for cleaning purposes or what have you. The converter, this pen just pulls out, and then we have the section. I always enjoy putting the nib in the crook of my finger, pushing down with my thumb on the section, the feed, and then gently unscrewing the section. Now you can do this, obviously when you do this, you may ruin the setting of the nib and feed. Brian Gray checks all of those things when they enter his, exit his facilities, and if you start to move that around, then you may ruin the setup he has checked, and then you may get, I don't know, scratchy stuff, inflow issues, etc. So be a little careful. Now, every once in a while I do this when I really want to clean a pen very well. I'm a little obsessed at times. If you have an ink that's particularly persistent or something, this can be useful. So that's the only reason I'm showing you. Also, if you want to turn this pen into an eyedropper, this is the only of the three pens that I've got here that can do that, I think. This is a massive barrel, so that would hold a lot of ink, and then it's a good idea to put some silicone grease clearly on the threads of the section, so that ink will not flow from the barrel through the joint of the section of the barrel, but also put some silicone grease right there on the nib collar. That way you will not have any ink seeping through there or something. So just so you know, I'm not sure whether it's possible to remove the nib and feed from the nib collar. I wouldn't attempt it if I were you. As I said, they're set in a correct way. There we go. And I wouldn't want to mess with that, to be honest. Okay, I'll leave that open so that I can ink it up in a second. I had the Prima as a second pen. Unscrew it. This is the only of these three pens that has a converter that screws in, so careful not to pull it and damage anything. It screws in place into the section, and then there's ink in here. I'm doing the same thing I just did with the Edison pen. You can unscrew the nib and just do that, and then you can probably swap it with other Monteverde pens. And now you want to know if you can also put in the Edison pen. I just know that there will be some people out there who want to know this. I think this is not... No, won't fit. Well, don't say I didn't try. Of course, different nibs sizes. No, it seems to be the same size. Doesn't matter, different manufacturers. You can't swap everything around, and that's just fine. Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, now I got ink on this. That's great. I love ink. Let me just squeeze a few drops of ink through the section into the feed. There we go. So they can write with that straight away in a second. This was already inked up, you see. And then we have Brett Thompson's pen. This was a kit pen. A lot of people look down a little bit on kit pens, and I think that is not necessarily a very sensible thing to do. If you have someone who's good at making this stuff, you can end up with a pen that looks extremely professional, and Brett Thompson, I think, has done so. I mean, this looks like a pen I could have bought in a shop, right? This doesn't look like it's made by an amateur at all. So, there you have it. Just wanted to get that out of the way. We have the converter. I cannot take these converters apart. Maybe the Edison... Yep. This is a Schmidt, yeah, Schmidt converter. You can take those apart if you really want to. Sorry that that wasn't extremely coordinated. So this went with the Edison pen. This was, I don't know which brand of converter this is. You may be able to, no, I don't think you can, oh yes, I do think you can take that apart. I don't really recommend doing that, and the reason is that you can take this off, and with enough force you can pull this out. But I have found that sometimes that ruins the seal of the converter. And what happens then, it's no longer airtight. It will draw up some ink, but it will only fill up to maybe a third of the capacity, and the ink will just drop out through the section. So I wouldn't do that unless it's absolutely vital. So for example, you've got ink behind the piston seal that annoys you, you want to get rid of that, then it's a good thing to do. Okay, so just having said that, here we have the section of this pen. Unscrew that bit, you can take this little metal ring out, and then again you have a nib and feed in the nib collar. And that's all there is to it. So what we'll do next is ink up these pens, 2 of them anyway, because one was already inked up. I'm using Diamine Ancient Copper. That's not a very an ink I really enjoy using for for fountain pen shootouts. I always try to use something that's very neutral, but I already had the Prima inked up with this, so to make this comparable, I'm going to throw this in all of the pens, and actually I think it will go very well with the Edison pen, which has this sort of orangey color to the finish. Alright, I'll grab some paper. Okay, so here we go. I'll start with the Collier in Persimmon Swirl. Swirl. There we go. The nib on this is broad, by the way. I see I've already not left enough space. I didn't leave enough space, but that's okay. Here we have the Monteverde Prima, also in broad. Notice the difference in broad between Monteverde and the Edison Pen Company. And then we have, I'll call this the Brett Thompson pen. And this, now I've completely forgotten which nib width this was. It's either a fine or a medium. I would say medium. I've forgotten. It's too long ago, guys. Sorry. Check out the review if you really want to see. I'll probably discuss it there. Okay. Bit of writing. The nib is very smooth. Pleasure to write with. I really enjoy it. Then we have the Monteverde Prima. Very pleasant to the touch, very pleasant to write with. I enjoyed it. This nib was smoother. You also notice it is a little bit broader, so it simply has more tipping material, I'm sure, which may make it a little bit smoother, but in any case, if I were to pick absolute smoothness now, I would go for the Collier. Now don't make any mistakes, this is not scratchy at all. I'm just saying it has a little bit less, or a little bit more feedback, but not unpleasant at all. When I got this, it was extremely smooth. I was surprised at its smoothness. Now that I compare it to this pen, I just find out it's a little less smooth. That's all there's to it. This nib is even finer. This is not a broad at all. And it wasn't sold as such or anything, I'm just saying. I would say this may have just a little bit more feedback than the Monteverde Prima. This one too, not scratchy at all, just the least smooth of 3 very smooth pens. Let's put it that way. What about flexibility? Can we get any type of flex or at least springiness from these nibs? They are all steel, so I'm not expecting that much, but you never know. That's some nice line variation, I would say. Also notice the wetness. It's a nice wet nib, just the way I like it. That too is a very nice line variation. And finally, we have this one, which offers some pretty decent variation too. What about the wetness? Well, I think the Collier is going to take the cake. What's the expression? Bite the bullet? No, that's not it. Bite the cake? No. Take the bar of chocolate? I just don't know. I think this one is going to win. That's all I was trying to say. Wetness. I like a wet nib. Pretty wet too. And a very wet pen too. So we have 3 nice wet pens. Okay. So which pen wins the shootout? Well, I really can't say. I mean, this is like comparing I don't know, a BMW to a Mercedes to another high-end pen. I don't know anything about a car. I don't know anything about cars, so these are pretty much the only 2 brands I know. An Audi. Is that a nice comparison? I don't know. In any case, it's really, let's put it another way. Apples, pears, bananas. I mean, they're all nice, but they're just different. I think, clearly, if you need a big pen, then this is it, because this is the biggest one in the shootout. If you need something that looks kind of refined, is a little bit more portable, just because it's a bit smaller and performs very well, you need this. If you need something that's, you know, also handcrafted and looks cool and you know, it's just different in any way, you can consider one of these pens. They're all good. They'll all serve the purpose just fine, but they're all very different. If I were to pick an absolute favorite, then in all honesty I would go for the Collier. I think this is everything I look for in a pen. It's large, it's smooth, it's beautiful, it's very pleasant to use. So personally, I would pick this, but that's just my personal opinion. You should form your own opinion, and let me know, which one would you pick? That's all there's to it. I hope this was useful, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.